Have you ever faced a situation where you need to map columns from a remote database to your local database, but the names are just too similar? It can be quite a headache, right? If that's you, then stick around because today we're diving into how to use Automapper to solve this problem. I totally get it. You have 24 columns named P1 through P24 in your remote database, and you want to map them to your local database columns named H1 through H24. It's a common scenario, and many developers have been there. Here's the specific question we're addressing today. How can you use Automapper to map these remote columns to your local columns efficiently? If you've been struggling with this, you're in the right place. To understand the issue, let's break it down. You want to avoid writing repetitive mapping code for each column. Instead, you're looking for a more dynamic solution that can handle this mapping with less boilerplate code. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end because I have a neat trick that will simplify your mapping process even further. To begin mapping the remote database columns to the local database, the user should first create a mapping configuration using Automapper. This involves defining a mapping between the source and destination types. Next, the user will need to map each of the columns from the remote database to the corresponding columns in the local database. This can be done using the for-member method for each column. Now, if the user wants to simplify the mapping process, they can use a loop to dynamically create the mappings instead of writing each one manually. This can be achieved using a for loop. Finally, the user should test the mapping to ensure that the values are being copied correctly from the remote database to the local database. This can be done by running a sample query. Fun fact, did you know that Automapper was created to help developers avoid writing repetitive mapping code? It's like having a personal assistant for your data transformations. Now let's look at the answers provided by other users. An alternative approach suggests using the replace member name function correctly within the entire mapper configuration. This allows you to replace characters in member names globally, rather than mapping each member individually. You can also create a local mapper configuration. This involves setting up the replace member name and the mapping in a single configuration object, which can then be used to map your data. Here's a pro tip. Always look for ways to reduce redundancy in your code. It not only saves time, but also makes your code cleaner and easier to maintain. And there you have it. You now have a better understanding of how to map your remote database columns to your local database using Automapper. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more tips and tricks.